let's talk about pots. G'day, I'm Kathy. This is where I talk about my plants and all my other pet projects. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a return visitor, thank you. I so appreciate you guys coming back to watch these videos. It's what keeps me going, actually. So I don't know if anyone's noticed, but yay, I got my mic working. Only took me a month, which is a whole story in itself. But anyway, when I was thinking about starting this channel, one of the reasons I wanted to do that is because there's not a lot of Australian content out there. Whilst there are some excellent videos, some of it doesn't relate to Australia because of our climate, the products we can use, because we're in the southern hemisphere, the plants that we can get, and things like that. So I wanted to do a series of videos just going over the basics of what you need to know when you're first starting out. So today's video is going to be about pots, all about pots. I'm going to break down the video into sections and timestamp each section if you'd like to skip ahead to any point. Oh, and if you hear any bell tinkling in the background, that is my cat Maya running around because she loves getting into every single video. I swear every time I edit a video, I find snippets of her throughout. So what kind of pots can you buy for your plants? Honestly, there is just so much variety and people can be really inventive as to what they use to pot up their plants. But the most common types are ceramic, terracotta, concrete, fiberglass, resin, metal, wood, glass, and that's just to name a few. Now be aware that depending on the material of the pot, you may need to water it more or less. It might heat up more or less. For example, terracotta pots. Usually terracotta is in this colour, which is great, but I get a bit tired of them. When I discovered these grey ones, I just love them. So I have quite a few of them in my collection. Terracotta, it's clay and it's porous, which means it can suck out the moisture out of the soil, so your plants will dry out a lot more quickly. And I do know that terracotta can crack in below freezing temperatures, so be aware of that as well. Now plastic, it does retain moisture a little bit more than say terracotta or concrete does, so for plants that like to be a little bit more moist, plastic is good. Ceramic pots, they also retain moisture and heat better. Now my understanding is that metal pots tend to warm up really quickly, and I think if you had them outdoors they might be too hot for certain plants unless they're in the shade. Now I've had a lot of trouble finding good ceramic pots that I like. I either don't like the shape or the size, particularly don't like the colours. I know this is going to be a really unpopular opinion, but I really hate white pots. So I actually ended up painting a few of them, and I'll insert some pictures here so you can see what that looks like. If you're interested in a video on how I did that, let me know down in the comments. Drainage. Drainage is, in my opinion, the most important aspect of the pots that you're going to choose. So what do I mean by drainage? I mean drainage holes. It's usually the holes in the bottom of the pot from which excess water can escape. Terracotta pots have these massive holes. That's a drainage hole. Now if your pot doesn't have drainage holes, when you water it, any excess water has nowhere to go. It will remain in the pot. So the soil will remain wet for much longer, which could eventually suffocate the roots and cause root rot, which will kill your plant. In fact, if you take anything away from this video, I hope it is that you use a pot that does have drainage holes. So what if you wanted to use a pot without a drainage hole, like this one? Okay, this is ceramic, there is no hole here. You can always drill a hole. Now I actually haven't drilled any holes in my ceramic pots, but it is something that you can do, and there are a lot of videos out there as to how to do it, but that is one option. The reason I don't like to do that is that sometimes, even after you let the excess water drain away, there might still be a little bit of leakage, and then wherever you put your pot with the drainage hole, it might cause some damage to your furniture or your floors or carpet or wherever you have it. So what I like to do is actually keep all my plants in their nursery pots. And then what I do is I actually put the nursery pot in a cover pot, also called a cache pot. And even if there is excess water, it has nowhere to go. So I can put this pot anywhere in my house and I won't cause any damage to my furniture or floors. A lot of people prefer to pot their plants directly into the cache pots or ceramic pots, but I just don't like that. I actually like being able to take it out. I can then even change the cover pot if I get sick of looking at one and find another ceramic pot that I like and use that instead. So it gives me a bit more variety. Now, I also think that if you're going to put your plant directly into a pot with a drainage hole, then get trays. Trays, saucers, honestly, it doesn't matter what you call them, but definitely get trays. At least that way you'll make sure that you'll protect your furniture or your floors from any leakage. Most terracotta pots do come with their own trays, here or here. I'm not sure which side, but I'll insert a picture of that. But I find that a lot of other pots don't have trays. So I also buy these. They're quite thin. And what I like to do is often I'll put my pot directly onto there. So if there is any excess water, it won't go all over the place. It'll stay in that little saucer. I also use these with any ceramic pots I have that have drainage holes. I'll sometimes put plastic down the bottom or something to ensure that water can't get anywhere, and I'll even put a tray within the cache pot, like that. That way water can't go anywhere whatsoever. Now these come in a lot of different sizes. These are bigger and much deeper. Now there are also soft clear plastic trays. I find them useless. They break far too easily, they're far too soft, and I honestly would not recommend that you get any of those. There are also hard plastic ones, but they are much more expensive than these. I think these are really cheap. I think I paid like 30 cents or something, but don't quote me. Now, what kind of soil? That's a tough one. There are a lot of different potting mixes out there. I'm not at that stage of making up my own, simply because there's just too many ingredients that you have to have, and I just don't want to bother with that. It might be that one day I'll do it, but for now I prefer to buy Osmocote Premium Potting Mix, and my plants seem to like that and be very happy with that. And with plants that like good drainage, as in they don't like to retain a lot of moisture in the soil, I'll also add perlite, which is a volcanic ash. If you ever see those little white bits at the top of the soil in your pots, that's usually perlite. So I like to throw in a bit of that, depending on the size of the pot, mix it in with the potting mix, and then use that for my plants. There is also peat moss, and to be honest, I'm not a fan of it. I know some people are, but I find it retains water far too long, and I've had some issues with some of my plants getting overwatered, even though I'm usually not a big overwaterer. But for beginners, honestly, I think it's enough to just buy a good potting mix. And you can test different ones. You can buy one, see if you like it, and if you don't, try another one until you find one you like. I also use cactus potting mix for all my succulents and cacti. In fact, I have a cacti that is in desperate need of repotting, but I'm just not looking forward to all the prickles. Repotting. Let me say up front, I definitely recommend against repotting your plants when you first buy them. They're already stressed, They've gone from optimal conditions, say in a greenhouse, to then the cellars and then to your home. So all of a sudden their climate, the humidity that they're in has changed, and they can get stressed. And believe me, plants do get stressed. Give them a bit of time to acclimate, and then if you want to, you can repot them. Now the other thing to be aware of is that it's always recommended to repot in spring and summer. I think in Melbourne we could probably also get away with it in autumn, but it's definitely recommended against in winter, unless there's a pressing need to do so. So when should you repot? I'll insert some footage here of my Monstera adansonii, which had roots growing out the bottom of the drainage holes. That's a clear indication that that plant needed repotting. Other reasons include that you notice your plant is drying out really fast, if your plant isn't growing or seems stunted, if you notice that the new leaves are smaller than the old leaves, if you've had issues with pests and you need to get rid of the soil and start again, if you've overwatered and the soil has remained waterlogged for far too long. These are some of the reasons why we need to repot our plants. Generally speaking, it's because they've outgrown the pot that they're in. So how do you repot? I know when I first started, I had no idea how to do it. It was real trial and error. I actually have filmed some footage, but I don't think the footage has come out, unfortunately. But generally speaking, how it works is, okay, say now I needed to repot this lovely philodendron burkin, which I don't. I really love this plant. I often get distracted looking at my plants, but anyway, say I needed to repot this. First thing is to get it out of the pot. Now, let me say straight off, repotting is really, really messy. It doesn't matter what you do, you will find soil going everywhere. And I know that when I first started, I was a bit appalled at just how much of a mess I made. But I actually really like repotting now. I really enjoy feeling the soil in my hands. Now, if you don't want to make a huge mess, I use a old kitty litter tray as my catch-all. I had it lying around and it seems to have worked really well. I'm actually looking for something similar but on a bigger scale, so if anyone has any suggestions as to what I could get, please let me know down in the comments. I don't like to disturb the roots of a plant too much, especially certain plants which have very delicate and thin roots like peperomias. I try to repot them without touching them at all. So some people suggest that you actually water your plant a few days before you intend to repot it. I often forget to do that. And in order to get, say, a plant out of a pot like this, you usually squeeze the sides. I even like to gently bang it on the side and then support the top of the plant and then turn it upside down. Leave it aside, you get your new pot. It's usually a good idea to pot up one size up, not several sizes. Like, don't go from this to a massive pot. There'll be far too much soil which will remain wet for far too long and could end up killing your plant. I've read somewhere, I do a lot of reading, I've read somewhere that it's actually good to retain some of the old soil that the plant was in, as it has certain micronutrients, I believe, or bacteria. I don't know the exact scientific reason, but it sounded good to me, so I like to keep some of the old soil and use that in the new pot. And when you get your pot, say for example, if we were to use this, I would fill it, say, an inch. I never put my plants right to the top of the pot because I find that when I water it, soil goes everywhere, makes a real mess. So I like to leave at least an inch from the top of the pot as to where the soil will end. You then put in your plant, see how far it goes. If it's sitting too low, you add some more soil. If it's sitting too high, you take out some soil. A lot of times it's a real guessing game. Then once you put the plant in, I like to support the plant and then backfill it with more soil. Some people also recommend you get rid of any air pockets by pressing down on the top of the soil. But the soil will also settle once you watered it a couple of times, then you might find that you need to top up the soil, that it's actually too low. That's happened to me several times as well. Now with certain plants, you shouldn't water them immediately, like succulents. I definitely don't recommend watering them as soon as you've planted them. But with most other plants, I will water them. I also forgot to mention that I use sea salt whenever I plant something, whether it's in the pot or outdoors. So what is sea salt? It's an Australian product and it's a seaweed extract. And what it does is it helps plants establish roots. It helps plants deal with pests, heat and frost. It also helps with flowering. Well, I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover. And I'm sure I left some things out. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I will definitely respond. Or even if you just want to say hi, I'd love to hear from you. Well, I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, you can give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content from me, you can subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Until next time, take care guys. Bye.